Yeah, go ahead. So when we see the space services, generally globally there are four segments. What most of you outside ISRO, what you will see is some 2 days before the launch and maybe launch day and another 2 3 days till the satellite reaches its destination, that is its place. But really behind such a launch there are so many things and so many business and R&D activities. Whether you are in business like industry or in R&D, these four segments are there. One is satellites and launch vehicles, which we know. The other one is technologies in sensors, platforms and spacecraft, because like our mobile phone, a dil mange more, every day we are asking more and more powerful camera, more and more memory storage and more lighter mobiles at a cheaper price, right? Same way here also, we need more and more clear pictures from the satellite, more and more better signal in communication, higher speeds in internet connectivity and all that. So behind the R&D, behind these satellites, there is some R&D going into the technologies in sensors, platforms and spacecraft, how we can make a lighter spacecraft with a more power at a lower cost. This is a challenge. And then once the satellites are there, okay, you have made some R&D and launched them, then how do you receive them? You have to get the data into the correct people's hands, and then if it is a remote sensing data or a communication data or a earth observation data or a navigation data, everybody has got different reception models. So we need a ground station. What are the products? How we have to produce them, and then what are the prices? Because what we see today in the Google Earth or the Google Maps is a vintage data, that is of 6 months, 1 year, or 2 years old data. But anything of the recent times will not be given free, because the companies also have to make the cost recovery for the investment they have made. So how do we make the pricing? Then how do we arrange the data supply? All these things are behind the scene applications and activities. And last but not least important is the applications, processing and algorithms. Okay, we have got a better data now. How do we use? How, there are two things. One is improving the current applications, their quality and their efficiency by using the new data. Other one is how do we increase the number of applications, where the applications which have never used earlier the satellite data, how we can utilize. So these are all things put together, they give the space services. And globally we know that everybody is increasing their activity, either as a user or as a producer or as a supplier or as a developer into R&D. All these activities or any of these activities. So one day all of you may be joining some industry, or you may set up an industry, or you may join an already established agency like ISRO or NASA. So in anything in space, you will be one of these things. Or even if you are not joining a direct space agency also, if you are in an electronics industry or a mechanical industry, you may be involved in the ground station, how to supply the station antennas and reception systems. Or if you are in IT also, how do you develop the algorithms, how do you improve the efficiency, etc. Then these are the host of applications which most of you may be aware. One is the land cover, land use pattern. What are all the different types of lands? Because our land resources is, let us say India, our land resources are fixed. How much land we have got? In that, how much is fertile? What is a wetland? Then what is a wasteland or a dry land? Then how much water is available? So these are all the information about the natural resources. Then on the right side, second slide is giving a change detection. Let us say every quarterly, how is the change pattern happening? If it is a crop, how is the crop health and how it is the growing? Then the third image is the Karnataka forest fires area, or in the central zone of India. So the forest areas, they catch up fires on their own during the summers. So how do you monitor them? How do you notify to the concerned people? And then how do we tell? The other one is fisheries. Where are the potential fish zones? Then telemedicine. How do you make the doctor available to a remote village virtually? So as if the doctor is available, he is talking to the patient, he is talking to the remote doctor and making it available. Tele-education, how a high class or a high quality education and lectures and seminars can be conducted to the students. Even today's our lecture itself is an example of a tele-education. It is a combination of communication, information, technologies, and with this we are able to see this session and listen to this lecture in a virtual mode, not wasting your time during the COVID lockdown. The India image, what you are seeing is all the different nodes of telemedicine where all they are connected. You can see the beauty Andaman Nicobar, Lakshadweep, Jammu Kashmir, and then our border areas and in northeast. Everything is connected to different specialty hospitals so that they can contact any doctor at any time. And at the bottom world map, what you are seeing is the sea surface temperatures and then the heat zones segregation, and then how much is the energy consumption pattern, and then how do we move ahead. Then the next one is a fishing, sorry, not fishing, this is a ship, I think. Yeah, ship. So this is a ship movement monitoring using the navigation. And the last one is the meteorology, how the weather is changing, how do we get ready, and then how do we use our resources and get ready for any eventuality or a bad weather. Then if you see the number of space countries, you see the on the top, the orange, those things were there in 1960s. That many countries and regions only were involved in space. And in the bottom, you see now you cannot count the number of countries involved in space. So we can count only countries who are not involved in space, the black regions. So when I say involved, they are either developers of some technology or they are giving money to others and then getting their satellite launch, or they are using the satellite data. They don't have a satellite or they don't have a rocket, but they are using the satellite data in their national building and day-to-day applications. So some of the technology trends what we are seeing, as I said, like in the mobile, now the trend is on the space segment. Everywhere we are seeing the miniaturization of electronics. So microelectronics is coming. So a large PCB or a large system is coming with equal performance or a higher performance in a smaller box. Then onboard computing is happening, and then large and lightweight structures are coming. So increased power and active remote sensing is coming. And I say active remote sensing, passive remote sensing is taking a photograph. Hello,
Yeah, sir.
can I request the audience to mute your mics?
Uh, sir, you are not audible, sir. Can you please turn on your audio, sir? Please turn off. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, now you can
How
go.
long? When was that?
Last
Okay?
few seconds. No. Last few seconds, sir. Only when you start, when you ask to mute the mic.
Okay. Now the technology trends are on the space segment. We are having a miniaturization of electronics, onboard computing, and then lightweight structures. So smaller satellites delivering the capabilities of a bigger satellites. These are all the improvements on the space segment. On the ground segment, we are using more higher variety of data and higher quality of data, and also combination. Like I said, communication, meteorology, navigation, and then other health information and GIS, all these technologies. So the ground segment and the space segment together, they are giving us more applications, are giving more information in the old applications which were available there. And web applications, because now people don't have to have a costly systems or anything, and with the web-based services, a thin client user can use the services and applications in a lighter mode, and seamless data and data fusion is happening. Suppose you want to have the data image of all the forest areas in Tamil Nadu, whole Tamil Nadu. Some data of the last 1 month may be available in IRS data. Some data of some other satellite may be available, and some data of vintage data or old data may be available. So without bothering about which satellite is this and which day it is, in the given the required band or required range of dates, so the satellite data can be integrated and given a big picture. Like in the mobile example, again we are going from one state to other state or one district to another district. The satellite space, this mobile operators are changing, but still we don't know. It is automatically changing at the back of the stage, and we are getting a continuous signal. Same way we are getting continuous data, and their fusion is happening. And what is basically the data? Data is only an input. We have to derive information out of that, and then again out of that we have to get the knowledge, and based on the knowledge we have to take a decision. It is not just like our one day data or from our to find out where is our school, where is our house, where is my native place in the Google map. That is just for fun, but in reality you have to take decisions based on this data availability. So for that, this useful data is really playing a big role in taking valuable decisions. If you see the global missions, like on the left side, worldview, there are different satellites from Iconos to worldview 3 and now worldview 4 also, giving up to 30 centimeter satellite resolution. What is the satellite resolution? That is the smallest size of the object that can be clearly seen in the image. On the right side, we are seeing the IRS missions and constellations, which is having a Cartosat series, ResourceSat series. Then the Carto 3 series is launched recently with 30 centimeter data. And then OceanSat series for oceans observation, microwave series, radar satellite series, RISat series, and also the scientific and interplanetary missions also. So when we see the Indian space program, Vikram Sarabhai is known as the father of the Indian space program, and started in 1960s when many people were questioning why ISRO, India requires a space program. India is a poor country, they don't have good roads, they don't have food for all the people and shelter. But then he has convinced the government and said that we should be self-reliant. We should not be dependent on others in space technology. Hence, he has convinced government and started this development of the space program, and slowly it evolved into multiple directions. The like IRS for remote sensing satellites, that is nothing but our cameras or eyes in the sky. Then space industry wise, he has developed the industry to participate in a larger scale. And on the third dimension, we have started involving the academic institutions and IITs and other research institutions, so that they carry out the fundamental research and then tell us what to do and what not to do. Then more than all these things, the end-to-end capability, because some of the countries are there, they can launch satellites and sorry, somebody else will be operating and somebody else will be giving the data and somebody else will be doing the application. But here in India, the advantage was ISRO has planned a end-to-end capability, right from finding out what is the required satellite, how to build the satellite, how to launch, how to operate, then how to receive the data, and then how to use it in different applications. So this end-to-end capability and operational infrastructure is the strength of ISRO and the strength of the India. So these socio-economic concerns are there. That is like the last man in the village, the common man on the street level. He has to receive the benefit of the higher technology or advanced technology. That is the vision of Vikram Sarabhai, and that is guiding ISRO even today. So in evolution is in 1960s, I said we have started in COSPAR. Then afterwards it became ISRO and Space Commission, etc. Then afterwards we have released so many satellites, and then I will show you a better slide than this. Yeah, I will cover that later. This is the ISRO organization. ISRO is directly under the Prime Minister, and we have a Space Commission which will give a policy and technology guidance. And the Department of Space is the mother of all. And within the Department of Space, we have got ISRO, and within ISRO, we have got different centers. And then within Department of Space, we have got other units like the PRL, NARL near Gadanki, Tirupati. NESAC is the Northeast Space Application Center. And then IIST is the Indian Institute of Space Science and Technology. That is the learning institute for making our own engineers and scientists in Trivandrum. So these different centers located across India, they all have a participation. You see the kind of and degree of teamwork which is required. We are all distributed across India. Suppose if a rocket is to be made, that is different parts are made in different centers, different parts are designed in different centers, and so many industries are involved. Same way satellite structure and integration is done in our center where I'm working, URRAO Satellite Center. Its payload is made in Ahmedabad. Tanks are made in Mahendragiri, and some other inertial systems are made in some industry. So we have to have a total tie-up and a total understanding and a teamwork to deliver the satellite or the rocket in time as per the design. Because if the time is not meeting, it is of no use. And if everybody brings something and somebody brings a subsystem which is not sitting in the allowed box, there is no use. So everything has to work in a teamwork. So this is a message for all of you, that wherever you join, whichever company you join, whether it is a mechanical industry or a chemical industry or a IT, you have to work in team mode and then work as a team wherever you are physically situated. Now these are all the different launch vehicles. We have initially started with SLV, that is a satellite launch vehicle. Afterwards, augmented satellite launch vehicle, and PSLV is the most famous thing. This is also, slide is old. We already have 44 missions. And then GSLV is a geosynchronous satellite launch vehicle, and GSLV Mark III. We had 3 missions, which is capable of up to 4 tons. So maybe after 1 or 2 more launches, India will not go or need not go to any foreign satellite launcher, which we are going right now to Ariane, and we can build all our satellites here and we can launch all our satellites here, 4 tons and subsequently up to 6-ton capacity also. And current space assets, if you see, we have got satellites in. I will not get into the numbers or names, because you can see all that in the internet. And we have got a host of 3 constellations, basically communication satellites for the communications, internet, and then our connectivity options. And then remote sensing satellites, you know very well, they are all satellites rotating around the earth and taking photographs any time of the day. Then navigation satellites is our IRNSS series, where there are 6 satellites in 6 different planes, so that we can get the directional information and positional information from these things. In addition, we have got the space mission, that is the Chandrayaan 1, which you are all of aware. Chandrayaan 2, which we could not succeed fully last year, but definitely Chandrayaan 2 also, the orbiter and the other satellite mission portion is working very well now also. And AstroSat and Mars mission, these are all well aware to you, which have been well published in the newspapers. So when we come to satellites, we have got 1000 kg satellites, 2000 kg satellites, 3000 kg, 4000 and 6000. In the common example, you can think like a Maruti 800 or a Maruti 1000 or a bigger Tata Sumo or another still bigger lorry kind of things. I'm just telling in the simpler language. So based on that, suppose if it is a Maruti 800, so you can compare something like 1000 kg bus. So some satellites, based on their payload and their tank and everything, they are built around 1000 kg bus. So this bus is something like, you can say, the basic structure or foundation. So like that, we have got 1000, 2000, 3000, 4000 and 6000. Up to 4000 we have succeeded. 6000 we have launched only one, and then more are still in the development. And communication examples, I don't have to tell you. Applications, broadcast, communication, meteorology, this we have seen. And navigation also, again, we have got different satellites. So this navigation information from these Indian satellites is being used by the railways, roadways, and surveying by the government departments, and the maritime, that is for the ships and other ocean-based vessels, and the aviation for the aircraft landing, and the as well as they are taking off. Also, this information is being used more or less. Hello.
Yes, sir. Please carry on, sir.
Okay, so we have got the Gagan, that is a GPS aided geo augmented navigation. This is an extension of the IRNSS. So this is also useful in our location and position information. So that is useful for aviation industry and for the civilians also. And coming to Earth observation, I said earlier that we have two remote sensing models basically. One is active remote sensing and other is a passive remote sensing. Passive remote sensing means the sunlight is falling on the object and that photograph or the image is collected. But in the case that is all dependent on the sun and sunlight, and clouds will be disrupting. In the case of microwave remote sensing, a radar satellites, the signal or energy signal is sent from the satellite to the ground. So that is something like our torch. So the signal is sent from the satellite to the ground. So that reflection is captured as an image. So you don't have any restriction with the night mode or the cloud mode. The other example is application is we are using them in the environmental monitoring and atmospheric research also. During the lockdown, I don't know how many of you have seen, last month there was a presentation from our IARS Dehradun where what are all the different pollution levels in different cities across India, and then what are all the pollution levels in the rivers, and then how the Ganga, Yamuna, Triveni Sangam, how that has become pure, and how beautifully and how blue color image you can see from the satellites because of the reduced pollution. So this is, though it is a sad event of the COVID, it has given a good opportunity for us to see how much pollution we are causing. So maybe because of our vehicular traffic, industry traffic, and the other wastage being dumped into the rivers and the oceans. So how much we are creating a damage to our environment is clearly measured now. Okay, so the message is, it is not that we have to be in the lockdown forever, but then we should be very careful in using our energy or energy resources, particularly non-renewable energy resources. Just because we have got money, we should not use petrol and diesel left and right, because that is a non-renewable energy. So we should, because that is also causing a pollution to the adding a pollution to the environment. So we should be careful in monitoring and maintaining and managing our resources, natural resources. For that, the satellites are useful. Examples are Megatropix, SARAL, and SCATSAT. And land and water resources management, you know very well, like the Google Earth is giving. Bhuvan also is there, available from NRSA Hyderabad, where we have got a resource satellite series with 5 meter, 23 meter, 150 meter resolution imagery. OceanSat giving up to 750 kilometers wide area and 156 meters wide resolution imagery. Then ResourceSat series is continuing. So all that is useful for land use, land cover, water resources management, then crop acreage and production. How many acres are having a wheat production in this year? How many acres across India are having a rice production? So what is our wheat estimate? What is our rice estimate? Can we export some of the wheat and rice, or are we in a position to import some rice, wheat, or onion, etc.? So all these decisions have to be taken based on realistic information, and that information is possible from these satellites. And also, what are the plantation crops? When do you have to do the plantation of the crops? Then what is the crop rotation? What are the natural resources available in that area, and then what are the environmental conditions, and then how much water is available in that surrounding area? All these factors play a role in our cropping and plantation systems. Then what are all the wastelands? How is the land getting degraded? So how do we arrest the land degradation and how best we use the wastelands for other purposes. Then in the security and intelligence, this is gaining more and more importance, and every day its value, not its value by application, its value, real dollar value in the imagery also, because the higher the satellite resolution, the better the information we can get. Again, I will go to your mobile example: 1 megapixel camera, 2 megapixel, 10 mega. Now we have got 20 megapixel and 40 megapixel, right? So same way, we are having earlier 150-meter resolution, 1 kilometer it started. Then it has become 500 meters, then 300 meters, 170, 23, 5 meters, 1 meter, half a meter. Today we have got up to 30 centimeter. So whatever these spy satellites are doing, they are nothing but actually remote sensing satellites only, but having a higher capacity of imaging so that they can be used for spying applications. So whatever earlier these pigeons were doing, afterwards they were being done by the satellites. You can see in the first image, the some satellites in some aeroplanes are landed there, they are parked there, that's all. In the second image, you can see that you can identify what are the flights which are landed there. In the third image, more the resolution is available, you can do the characterization. So from detection to identification, and identification to characterization, and finally you can even tell what model it is and what make it is, with more and more imagery and higher quality. That will give you advantage over the enemy. How many planes he has put across the border, when he has put, then what are the changes in the last 6 months. All these things can be monitored. Then applications in disaster management is, like I said, this information from remote sensing satellites, communication satellites, navigation satellites, and the mobile technology, everything put together has to be used for disaster management. Because from the remote sensing satellites, we have to see when are the from the weather satellites, we have to see how is the weather situation. Then when is the next flood or a water cyclone likely to come. Then from the remote sensing imagery, we have to see what are the low lying areas, which areas are likely to be submerged. Then we have to see the rise in the water level. How do you communicate? Again, use the mobile technology, whether it is an SMS or another app. So how do you communicate to that gram panchayat level or a village level or individuals level? Please evacuate. This water is going to rise by another 2 feet by tomorrow. This area or this village or this block level people, they have to evacuate like that. And this 3D modeling, this is the example of application on the ground. Once the satellite data is available, you are able to model the 3D data using multiple sources of data. So this is useful for governing. As I said, if the water flood is coming, if the water flood is increasing, what is the expected inflow? In the next 2 days, how is the water rise going to be? If the water rises by 1 feet, how many streets or villages are likely to be affected? If it is rising by 2 feet, how many villages will be affected? How do we rescue them? Then again, you have identified that one village is affected, you have to rescue. Then you have to find out what is the nearest big school, chowdhury, or a kalyan mandapam or something else, which can house 5,000 people, but then which is not in a flooded area, but which is in a good high location. So we have to find out. After that, we have to find out what is the best route. There may be a good place or a good temple on a hilltop, but is there a good route to take 5,000 people? So again, we need the navigation support there. So all that, this is required a combination of communication, remote sensing, navigation technologies, along with the ground information like the GIS, etc. And this can be for the natural disasters like flood, cyclone, etc., or man-made disasters. If any bad elements in the society are creating any trouble, then immediately we have to find out where are the hospitals, what is the best route for this hospital, what are the facilities in that hospital. So today we have got so many hospitals, so many different facilities are there. How do we develop an integrated network or an integrated database? What is the hospital, what is the specialty, whether I can send orthopedic patients there, or whether I can send a burn injury patients there, and how many beds are there, how many doctors are there, is it accessible? All this information has to be merged into one combined database and network. That is all useful in the disaster management, and this 3D modeling is helping. Now this is this when we were showing this image, it was not getting the attention of the patient, sorry, people, but now most of the people are patients, so this is getting the attention. You see how we can use the satellite information in health management. So where are all the respiratory alerts? You see the first slide, which show first part, which shows 114 zones as respiratory alerts, where tuberculosis is prevalent, where cough is more, where pneumonia is more. And then in the second one, it is telling what are all the current locations of the outbreaks. And then now today COVID case also, they are all monitoring at the country level, where are all the new cases coming, from which state, from which district, or from which village or town. So that means based on that only they are defining what is a containment zone, what is a green zone, and what is a red zone. Based on that, we have to take different curfew measures or different restriction measures based on the red, green, and orange zones. So same way, what are the outbreaks? Then how do we prevent them? So for that, suppose if it is a vector-borne disease, suppose if we know that mosquitoes, they all will be there in and around the junk water. Where is the water? Stagnated water. How do we monitor? How many days it is stagnated? Then what is the wind direction? And what is the wind profile, in which direction it is going? So naturally these diseases also will spread in that direction. Then you give the donation, and then after that you give the management advices to the local administrators or local hospitals. Then after that, we have got, this is an interesting chapter for the students and the younger generation more, that is space science and planetary missions. Not just restricted with the remote sensing, communication, etc. We are building and launching the space science and planetary missions like Chandrayaan, Mars Orbiter, Astrosat, and then very soon the X-ray polarimetry satellite also will be launched. And subsequently Chandrayaan 3 will be attempted once again to prove the Chandrayaan 2's failed portion. So all that will give two things. One is enthusiasm to the younger generation, but that is not the primary thing. We have to develop and prove our technologies and then demonstrate them. Then after that, in future, when and where, if and when we take any interplanetary journeys, it will be useful. Now the project where I am working is Gaganyaan. Is also, we are not sending man onto moon or anything. There is a space, there are two capsules. One is a service module, one is a crew module. In the crew module, 3 people will be sitting, 3 astronauts for 7 days, and they will be rotating around the earth for 1 week, so that we know how to operate a crew module, then what are their mental and physical conditions, then how to improve the service levels, and then how to train the astronauts if and when we decide we have to go to moon, Mars, or any other interplanetary journeys. So these are all different technologies for the demonstration of the available technologies, acquisition of new technologies, and then learning our next steps or future steps. Then these are some of the recent satellites. GSAT 17, this is again communication. GSAT 19 and GSAT 11. GSAT 11 was the highest or heaviest satellite which we have launched from India. And this Cartosat series, we have got the Cartosat 2 and Cartosat 3 also is launched. As I told already, 30 centimeter data is available. And the nano satellites, many universities and many institutions have launched nano satellites with up to 1 to 10 kilograms are the nano satellites. And GSAT 9 was launched in a KU band. I'm not getting into micro details. Some of the missions were for Chandrayaan 2 and IRNSS, that is another navigation satellite. Now this will be interesting to you, those who have not seen inside ISRO. These are all the electronic fabrication systems and their testing systems and the platforms and infrastructure which are available. When it is a space grade system or a space system, the care has to be taken right from the component selection. Space grade component is selected first, then the component is tested at the factory level, then the component is tested at ISRO level, then all the components are fabricated on the PCB, then PCB level testing is done, then a subsystem level testing is done, after that system level testing is done, then after that all the systems are brought together, they are integrated and then tested for the continuity and a combined networked mode of working. So like that you can see here, this is electronic subsystem fabrication activities, and then this is a structure. Bottom first picture is the structure assembly at clean room. As I said, different groups, different centers and different industries make these systems. So somebody will bring a power system, somebody will bring a communication system, somebody will bring an antenna. So all those things are different subsystems. So this around this structure, this clean room, in the clean room around this structure, all the subsystems are assembled one after the other, and this is a propulsion tank within the satellite, which is useful for the satellite position and monitoring. And another says spacecraft level testing is, these are all the spacecraft panel. On the left side, first one what you are seeing is the panel, how it is to be closed and opened. And then the thermovac chamber is a thermal and vacuum conditions as if they are in the space, they are simulated, and that is satellite is put into that chamber maybe for 14 days, 7 days or 21 days based on the expertise and the heritage. And after that, dynamic balancing test and solar panel deployment, vibration, acoustics and CATF. Where what is this vibration and acoustic test? Suppose if you are traveling by a rocket, or you are traveling by a GSLV, you are traveling you mean satellite. Satellite is traveling by a PSLV, GSLV or an American rocket or a Russian rocket. The vibration and acoustic levels are different. So it has to be kept in mind what is the rocket, what are the vibration levels, acoustic levels, and this satellite has to withstand those levels, right? Suppose if somebody is used to travel by auto, bus or a car or a lorry, so their vibration and sound levels in the auto, lorry and car are different. So people have to be accustomed to that, right? I'm giving this normal example so that you will easily understand. You cannot put a person who has traveled all along in a comfortable AC car directly on a lorry. He will feel trouble. Same way, the auto to car also there is a difference. Same way, this acoustic and vibration tests are conducted keeping which satellite and which rocket and when are we launching. So based on all these parameters, the satellites are tested. Okay, this may not be of much interest to you. Generally, if you see what is the total space segment and how is the money, so that is space systems manufacturing and ground segment, etc. They will take around 44% of the whole system. Then the satellite system takes around 56%, and the launch services is 22. When you join some industry tomorrow, or when you set up your own industry, you will know. Again, within this 56% satellite, then how much is the real satellite cost, how much is the insurance cost, how much is the launch cost, and then how do you upgrade the technologies, and then how do you, because with the mobiles itself we are facing the trouble, right? We want the highest feature, best possible phone today, and you do the survey for 1 month, and by next week one more new advanced thing will come. So you cannot immediately throw the old one. So you have to invest in the infrastructure. That is okay, maybe a matter of 10,000, 20,000 or 30,000. But here millions of dollars and crores of rupees are spent. So how do you select the technology? How do you invest in the industry? And then how do you invest in the infrastructure? These are all the things. Suppose in the case of ISRO itself, if you see overall budget is 8,000 to 10,000 crores. So how that is divided? Once the government gives a budget to the ISRO, then within ISRO, how much budget is available for spacecraft? How much is for the launcher, that is rockets? How much is for other systems, ground systems and applications? Then again within that, how much is for IRS, geosat, navigation? So these are all different calculations which have to go. So this is a budget, how much is available, and then how much material is available, and what technology is available in the global market, how much we will get. We may not get everything which is available, and we may get some technology in 3 years, but we need a satellite to be made in 1.5 years. So we have to decide the technology and the spacecraft time and the spacecraft definition based on the money, based on the time available, and based on the technology which is available to India, to ISRO at that time, and how many satellites you are going to launch. So how much inventory you have to do, because some of the spacecraft components, space grade components, will take 14 to 40 weeks. I repeat, 14 to 40 weeks delivery period. So we cannot ask in the last minute. So we should have a long-term planning. Why I have shown this slide is ISRO or any kind of organization like ISRO or any industry is a combination of technology, management, administration, and planning. Everybody may not be master in everything, but then you are a master in hardware. Okay, you do hardware. Somebody is master in software. They do. Somebody has to do the planning and money matters. Somebody has to do the inventory, procurement, and then supply chain. So this is having a scope for all the people. Of course, technology is dominating and they are more in numbers. This most of you may be aware. So we have gone through four. We have 3 more minutes, right? Vajit?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
After that is question answer. Huh?
Yeah, please continue, sir.
Okay, we have gone through 4 stages. One is India had no satellites or no rockets. So we have gone to US. US designed our satellites and they have launched them by Russia because Russian launch was cheaper. After that, we have built and designed our own satellites. Still, we didn't have a rocket. So we have gone to Russia and launched them. After that, in the third phase, we have designed our satellites and we have launched them by our PSLV and ASLV or GSLV. Now the last thing is more important, which is some countries have denied satellites or a technology or some launch for us, but now we are designing and launching the satellites for them, or they are bringing their satellites and launching for us, and we have launched more than 100 satellites and for more than 30 countries across the globe under the bilateral agreement and under the commercial agreement also. So that is the phase. So same way, you also as a student, you may be learning something today, but you should aim that you should go back to your parents or teachers in such a way that you have proven beyond their expectations and you are successful. Don't measure always success by money or how many cars or bungalows you are having. You may be joining an industry. You may supply a small nut and bolt to ISRO, but still that nut and bolt, if the weight and the cost and the robustness, if it is good, you are a master there. You may be developing a thermal system as a thermal engineer, or you may be supplying high quality space grade wires to ISRO. Everybody joining ISRO or joining a space program will not become an astronaut, and you will not simply fly and then wave from there with a victory signal. So you have to see that there is a scope for proving your talent either in money matters or money management, supply, or a small nut and bolt, thermal system, solar panel, or a thermal tank, or as a chemical engineer in developing a new alloy for a combination of a lighter weight, etc. There are so many other things, and you should prove and come back to your parents and teachers that you have gone beyond their expectation. So this is what we have discussed. So ISRO started in experimental phase, we have gone to development, then operational, and now we are expanding and commercializing, and we are supplying to others also. So that is fine. But what is the greatness of space field means? There is a large value of the systems and infrastructure and the cost of the components. So there is a high value, but volume is low. And then it is a now or never. It is not like a car. If by chance if it gets into any problem, you leave on the roadside and then lock your car and go home and come next day with a mechanic. So once you have launched, there is no scope for repair or anything. Whatever repair or anything from main to redundant, etc., is all what we have planned only. So we should be having a very high quality very robust, efficient systems for a single operation, and which you cannot test. One beautiful thing, whatever components or anything we may test, you may test 99 components, and after getting satisfaction, 100th component you may put in the rocket or satellite. But that particular satellite is not put. Like for this example, I'll tell you matchsticks. You have got 10 boxes of matchsticks, right? You can test 9 matchstick boxes whether they are working fine. Yes, they are working fine. Then you can assume that 10th box also is from the same factory, from the same lot, made by the same people, and you can assume that that will work. But you cannot test it and then again reuse, right? It is a use, you once used, it is gone. So same way, there are most of the things, the systems in space are single operation and non-testable on ground. And it is a multidisciplinary. As I told, there are civil engineers, mechanical engineers, chemical engineers, electrical engineers, and they are all distributed across different industries, different places. And within the center also, suppose in our center we are 2000 people in different groups, different areas, and different sections. So there's a large teamwork which is involved, and the worker to engineer ratio is very small. Engineers are more, workers are less, and then the ISRO people are producing and developing and launching. So now with this new announced policies, we may be having more industry participation so that we can focus more on R&D, and once the technology is proven, we can give it to the industry. And last thing important here is communication and technical transparency is essential. As I said, we should communicate well with the industry, our subgroups, or my next room, or my next center in Ahmedabad, what we are doing, or if there is any change in my system, we have to communicate to them, and then we have to tell them what are the changes, and if it has any impact on them, they have to calculate, and if they have to say agreed or not agreed. Then that is how we have to work as a good teamwork. Okay, this may not be good for engineering student. This is more for the management staff or management students. Basically, what are the key success factors in the technical projects, whether it is a satellite, rocket, or an overall mission? One is concepts. We should be very clear about the concepts. That is why I request all of you to study the subject for the sake of subject, not for your semester exam, or not for your parents, or not for your HOD. You read the subject, and fundamentals have to be there in the mind. So whatever you are there, whether you are electrical engineer, mechanical engineer, or a chemical engineer, fundas have to be there very well. Then after you know the fundamentals also, your execution has to be very clear, perfect, on time, and on dot. Then after that, perfect concepts are there, perfect execution is there. But then again, what is the vision? At the leadership level, we should know what to do and when to do. After that only you will know how to do. So for this, what are all the different systems which come into picture? Technology and guidance, administration and control, organization control, and organization's culture. What are the different staff and systems available? Then what is the philosophy of planning, spending, and moving with the people? All these things matter a lot. That's why many people are surprised. Even being in a government organization, ISRO is unique, ISRO is special. You are able to meet all the timelines, and mostly you are successful. How is it possible? Means we proudly say it is a ISRO culture. You cannot exactly word it or measure it or do get under any testing. It is a teamwork, freedom within the boundaries, and then individual freedom to work, think, and then suggest anything, and then rigorous testing, and then multiple testing by multiple people and multiple teams, and being open to questioning by anybody. This is the last but most important aspect of the ISRO culture. This is what I have told. Okay, so what is the conclusion? We have got a roadmap of what are all the international developments and technology trends happening across the globe. We should keep in mind. Then what are the national needs, what India needs today? Then okay, India may need X technology, maybe Y. that is all fine, but out of that, what is the technology available for us? Is it available as a outsourced directly to be bought out, or is it to be developed, or do we have to get a technology transfer and develop, or do we develop from scratch? All these decisions have to be taken. For that, what is important at the management level? You have to look outside, see what is happening, analyze, and then work inside for the user needs. What is the communication satellites requirement in the globe, in the India? Now we have got more than 500 TV channels, still more people are coming. So how much is the demand? How do we meet them? How many remote sensing satellites are required, etc. So whether it is everything is built in-house, launched, or you are procuring and launching. So these are different patterns available. So we have to have a mix and match. There is no decision exactly whether you will buy a coffee or you will buy a milk and make coffee, or you will buy a buffalo and then get milk and make a coffee. These are all different examples. So like that, we have to take different decisions whether we buy the technology, get the technology, or develop the technology. So I think this was useful to you.